Hello, BookTube. We're continuing with my library tour. We're on to the next shelf here. I am standing up, which is not a thing I do often, nor a thing I encourage. We're going to do the Crosswise books first, and we have Alessandro Marzo Magno. Who is this translated by? This is translated by Gregory Conti, and this is Bound in Venice, The Serene Republic and the Dawn of the Book. Book about Venice's rich history with the dawn of printed literacy. So you'll get Aldo Manutius, but you'll also get lots of other people, lots and lots of figures who are forgotten, whereas Aldous Manutius is not only because he invented italics, but also because he's the murder at the heart of the longest book I ever wrote, 1515. Okay, then we have this is a battered ex-library copy of Doris Lund's book Eric, about her son. I don't know why I have a couple of other copies of this book. I don't know why I have why I would keep this when it's in such terrible shape. I guess because the body of the book itself is fine and it's nice and floppy, so it's not going to get any worse. But this is this is Doris Lund's biography of her son, who died of leukemia as a teenager or as a young man. So a fairly robust subgenre has built up since then, but her book is amazingly moving. Even though there's a lot of other books will come to mind when you hear that. Okay, well, this is Anna Quinlan. We've seen her before. This is Good Dog, Stay. And it's about dogs. It's about dog ownership and loving dogs, but it's also about seeing them to the end of their lives. And it's pretty good in that regard, which I don't say about many dog books. Then we have this lovely Harcourt paperback of Mary McCarthy's book, Venice Observed. I have a lot of books on Venice, but this is one of the most eloquent of them all, where Mary McCarthy goes to Venice knowing perfectly well that everyone who's ever gone to Venice has written a book about it and decides to write a book about it. Oh, okay, well, all right. Well, we knew this already. We knew this already. This is yet another copy of Dune. This is the mass market paperback with a figure of two distant figures walking on sand. I have a lot of copies of Dune. I guess that's just the long and the short of it, is that I have a lot of copies of Dune. Oh, okay, great. This is a relatively recent book. This came out in 2018. Is that right? 2012, sorry. This is by Leah Price, and it's How to Do Things with Books in Victorian Britain. And it's all about book culture in Victorian Britain. Not just the non-bookish, the non-reading things that you can do with books, but also all the things that Victorians did. It's not very long as a book, but boy, oh boy, I don't think I was even finished with my first reading of it before I knew that it was going to end up in this room. Although technically, technically it doesn't belong in here. I have a book, an entire section about books and books about reading and whatnot. Technically, they should all be there so that I'm not looking there for a book that's actually in here. But that's what the library tour is for, to clear this up. Then we have, oh, this is just lovely. How wonderful. This is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. This is illustrated by Harrison Fisher. And this is Hiawatha. This is a beautiful illustrated edition of Hiawatha that has lovely cover designs. There are designs even behind the verse. Then there are spot illustrations, and there are also full-size illustrations in duotone. They're just fantastic. And we saw, where did we see it? Is it nearby that I can grab it and maybe put it with this book where it definitely belongs? We saw the Courtship of Miles Standish in the exact same set. Yeah, there it is. Well, anyway, let's just leave it up there. Then we have another big book. We've seen a lot of these vintage big books. Our Pantheon, this is Otto Penzler, is the editor here. This is an absolute natural. The big books tended to come out as trade paperbacks and hardcover simultaneously, and I went to the bookstore and bought this one in hardcover. These are wider size than a normal hardcover. They are double columned, and they're usually wonderful. And this is the big book of Sherlock Holmes stories. Cannot beat that. I knew right away that I didn't want it in a trade paperback, and I've gone back to this a lot because this has one canonical Holmes story, And then a whole bunch of little bits and pieces from a whole bunch of other people, including Stephen King and Anthony Burgess. Yes, yeah. Uh, it's just delightful for a Holmes fan, especially as I am a fan of Holmes pastiche fiction. Just delightful. Really should have all the big books together. So the big book of science fiction. Did we see? We saw a lot of other big books so far, and there are more to come. I really should have them together. Okay, then we have, this is the actual used copy. I showed you this. Leonard Woolf's The Essential Dracula, with all of his great, hilariously exhaustive notations. And I mentioned that it was a double, and it's a double of this, which is full of reviews and clippings, and which is headlined like underlined like crazy. This is the version that I pull out and use from the shelf. I shouldn't have two, and if I have two, the second one, the backup pristine copy one, should not be in this room. It should not be taking up shelf space here in the little book room, where shelf space should be at a premium. Okay, then we have a UK edition, a UK trade paperback. I have a very soft spot for UK trade paperbacks, and this is Sid Mukherjee's book, The Gene, in this lovely UK trade paperback that I got a few years ago. And this is just his story about the gene, and he personalizes it with personal stories, personal anecdotes from patients and researchers. Does his usual really, really good job of explaining what genes are, what they do, what they don't do. Well, a lot of them, common misconceptions of them are. Okay, well, here we have another big book. This is another big book. This is also edited by the great Otto Penzler. This is the big book of ghost stories. Look at the size of this thing. It's twice as long as the Sherlock Holmes volume. It has a representative here from everybody. But the really great thing about Otto Penzler collections, his anthologies, especially when, as in the case with the big books, he's given a completely free hand. The really great thing about his anthologies is that this won't be just the usual suspects. He always manages to dig up really interesting or good figures that you haven't read a lot of, or that maybe you've never heard of. I just think his anthology, I think he's one of the greatest anthologists who's ever lived. And his big book of ghost stories is also a perennial returner. This and the Sherlock Holmes volume, and actually that illustrated Hiawatha and the Essential Dracula. These are really what I mean by the books that end up in this room, and they're the books that I go back to over and over again. And I do this when we already saw the Oxford Book of English Ghost Stories. I love these things. We also saw the Uray book by Zach Davison. I love these things, although I should stress they aren't real. I should stress I love the stories, absolutely, much as anybody does, but there's no such thing as ghosts. There's no part of you that's non-biological. Okay? So there's no part of you that survives you dying. There's no part of you that is not biology. You are your body. You are your body. There's nothing inhabiting you, riding around in your body that goes somewhere else when your body dies. But anyway, it's a debate for another time, or maybe never. So this next one is by Michael J. Benton. This is Dinosaurs Rediscovered, another popular dinosaur book. I have a few of these. There's one that I don't have. There's one that I had for years and years, went back to it over and over again. Got rid of it. It's called Dinosauria, and I got rid of it. No idea why. I'm assuming that the Brattle will provide. Then we have, this is fascinating. When did this thing come out? Do I still have a pub sheet in you? No, I don't appear to have a pub sheet in you. Oh, well, yes, I do. It's not an actual, 2017. So we may have seen this on this channel. This is Edward J. Epstein. This is How America Lost Its Secrets. Edward Snowden, The Man and the Theft. As you can tell, this is not a sympathetic account of Edward Snowden. This is extremely non-sympathetic. I think I wrote about this. I'm pretty sure that I reviewed this for the Boston Globe, I think it was. Well, anyway, it could easily have been the Christian Science Monitor either. But this is not the usual Edward. Edward Snowden has largely accrued hagiography since he absconded from the country, and this is not that. This is a critical, even caustic account. Very interesting to that kind of a thing. Okay, then we have Raymond Brown. This is an introduction to the New Testament. there was an abridgment of this that the publisher sent me, and I almost sent them a curt "How dare you!" but the abridgment is good too. But this is the full thing, which is this author has written extensively on Christianity, on the death of the Messiah and the birth of the Messiah, and this is taking you through every single bit of the New Testament and telling you a bit of its history, a bit of its textual reception, and a bit of the reading controversies that may have risen up around it. Remarkably clear-eyed. A very, very useful book. And then we'll finish up with this last one. Oh, okay, great. This last one is also a UK book. This is hardcover, a UK hardcover. And this is yet another P.G. Wodehouse anthology. I have lots of them. I have lots of P.G. Wodehouse anthologies. This is What Ho!, which is something that a lot of P.G. Wodehouse's brainless young men just blurt out whenever they greet someone that they know. This is just a big anthology of Wodehouse. This has a lot of British people on the back, a lot of British blurbs. You've got this spot illustration. So this has Jeeves and Blandings Castle and golf stories and a whole bunch of other stuff. Just absolutely delightful. Also some nonfiction, which is always good. And there you go. That's it. Well, that was easy. that was this shelf. Shelf tours are so much faster when one is on one's feet. So we're just going to move on to the next shelf. I'm giving serious, squinty-eyed consideration to the books on this shelf and whether or not they belong here, whether or not they belong where they are. They're taking up valuable real estate in the most valuable real estate in the country. They should be carrying their weight. Really shouldn't have 5 copies of the same book in this room, even if they are 5 different editions. I really shouldn't have doubles in this room, exact doubles in this room. I really should not have thematic books that are only here because this is where I put them when I put books back on these shelves. I really shouldn't have that. They should be out where they belong. They should be with their kind. There's a specific metric for what goes in this room. Anyway, I will figure it out, and there will be an entirely new little book room when I'm done. But anyway, that's it. That is this shelf tour. I will wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.